Alright, so in the previous video you created your Azure for Students Starter account and logged in, and now we're here. We've got a few interesting options here. First of all, you can take a look at this description of some general roles. These are fairly generic. These are not specific to Azure. You would have these various role options anywhere you worked on data products like this. I'm not really going to spend time going into those though. What I want to show you next though is the free software. This is actually incredibly cool and useful. I'm a little old school and I like using Visual Studio Enterprise because I grew up on that. It's got a lot of extra tools built in above and beyond Visual Studio Code. I'm not going to click this, but you can click on it, View Key, and you'll get a license key that's just for you. They don't make this free to everybody. SQL Server Developer, that's another useful one. I also noticed it looks like they give Visual Studio here, although I haven't tried downloading it yet. Visio. There are a lot of other tools out there, but this is something that you'd have to pay for normally to create diagrams, flowcharts, ER diagrams, anyway, a variety of things. So you can browse this. You're not going to need to use any of these for the video series that I'm going to go through here. Finally, though, we have this redeem student credits right here. So some of the features that we use will require, they'll run out after a certain quantity of credits are gone. And we'll need to get these credits. So let's go ahead and click on Activate Offer. Okay, we got to agree here. And as usual, I don't sign up for shared information, but that's up to you. It is good, but I'm a researcher of information privacy, and I'm the tin hat wearing guy, so I'm sure it wouldn't hurt to share it for most people, for anyone, but I don't usually click on that. All right, I'm just going to leave this blank. Perfect. Click on my account again, which signs me back in, right back to where I was, but now I've got the $100 credit. So we'll come back to that in a moment, but we also, now this has changed, deploy services that are included for free with your Azure subscription. So we have some services that don't depend on those credits. Great, let's take a look and see what they offer here. All right, so variety of data storage, and some of these you're welcome to create now. Otherwise, we can create them later when we get to it. But free number of hours on MySQL databases, Postgres. I like to use this one right here, Azure SQL Database. So we just simply have a limit on the amount of data we can store. Bandwidth, cool. I'm going to keep scrolling through here. We've got some machine learning tools that are incredibly useful. This is free number of transactions per month. We'll definitely use these at some point in the video series, but I'm not going to go ahead and create them right now. Facial recognition, that's really cool too. All these AI and machine learning ones, this is really nice that we get access to all of these. Text analytics, and all that. Cool. Well, what we're going to do is go back to home, and let's just notice a few of the things we have options for here. Services, these are cloud services that we may want to activate at some point. I'm going to point you to subscriptions here. And this is that $100 credit sponsored by Azure. A subscription is needed, I believe, for every service, whether it's a credit card or this Azure sponsorship right here. Normally this would be a credit card or some paid account, and for students though, we can use this instead and save us the risk of having to accidentally rack up a gigantic bill. This dashboard is useful. I like to, when I log in, it'll bring you can have a default dashboard, and it'll have resources that you've created. These are the ones that come with the Azure sponsorship account. We're going to create some as we go along, and you'll see them all listed right here. Let's see. I want to go back and show you in this Quick Start Center here. This is a way to activate several services at once to accomplish a task. So set up a database. This is kind of more like a walkthrough of how to pick the database you want, create a web app. You just are going to choose the technologies you want to use. It's pretty smooth, very similar to AWS's as well. If we just want to go straight to all possible resources all resources that we have running, this is the same view or the brief view of what we have here on the dashboard. So this is a quick view of the resources. Let's look at all services here. So these are just the featured ones. I think to find all of them, it's quickest just to use the search bar up here. But we're going to start now by simply creating a machine learning service. So click here on all services. We'll take a look at everything they have here. This is all of our virtual machines, networking, yeah, no, storage, data services, app development services, mobile app development services, containerization, databases. I'm going to scroll all the way to analytics. There we go. So these are analytics platforms, or they provide kind of services. I'm not going to get into all the details right now. We have some sub-services that will attach or call from some of these services up here that we can use for specific things. Like text analytics, image recognition. They've got a lot of pre-trained models in here so that we don't have to build our own. They've also got, if you've learned or used this in the past, access here to the Machine Learning Studio Classic workspaces. We're not going to use that anymore. That's being phased out. Instead, I had to do a little find here. Instead, we're going to use this machine learning tool right here. This is the platform that replicates everything that's already available here in the Classic, but it does it here on the Azure portal, which is their production environment that they developed after the Machine Learning Studio that you may be familiar with. Anyway, so we're going to create a new instance here. So come in here, first thing it says we need to know how you're going to pay for this. Now this subscription won't be able to create this, but we have these two Azure for Students, Azure for Student Starter accounts that we did create. So take a look at these two. We can create it on either one of them. I'm going to start here with Azure for Students, and a resource group is a way to keep a set of services together that are for a particular task. So it wants us to make one. I haven't made one. You can make one before you get to this point, but if you haven't, it gives you the prompting right here to make one. So let's go ahead and call this education or something like this, something just to identify this is a resource that you're going to use to learn with. Whoops. Create new. Education. Okay, that's what I meant to select. Okay, so this workspace, we're making a machine learning workspace, which is a lot like what you may have used in the classic Azure Machine Learning Studio. We just got to give it a name. I'm going to call this Learning Workspace. Oh, no spaces. Learning Space. And noticed it created some things automatically down here. A storage account, so this is a place to keep track of all the data sets we use. Key vault for authentication, and then a way to analyze what we do and give us suggestions to save a bit of cost or make Microsoft more money, a bit of both. The region here, this is important just to keep track of. We don't need to write it down. We can always find it later. But certain services aren't always available in every region. Also, when we want to activate another service, sometimes they need to be on the same region or a compatible region. So that's why this is relevant, but I'm going to leave it to the default. And then lastly, we can use a container for this. I'm not going to go into containerization here in this video. We don't have to though, so I'm going to leave it set to none. All right, connectivity method. I want a public endpoint so that I can access this. The services I create, I can access them from anywhere, so I'm going to leave it as public. Next. All right. For storage account access, this means use a username and password to get to that storage account, and we can access it through some of Microsoft's downloadable tools like their Azure Data Studio, I think it's called. Anyway, we're going to leave this set to credential based so we can log in using our account credentials. Let's just let Microsoft manage our keys for us. For encryption, that'll make life easier. And we're not going to use sensitive data for this walkthrough, so I'm going to leave that. Next, tags. If you're going to have a ton of services, you can tag this with a certain name or attribute value pair so that you can search for it and find it later easier. I'm not going to worry about it. Just going to skip and let it review and create. Well, review. And now this all looks good. Now we create. Okay, I'm going to stop here because it takes a little while to deploy, or at least a few minutes, and we'll pick up the next video once this is done with an introduction to the services within machine learning.